In November 2026, a machine built before the internet existed will cross a line no human thing has ever reached. Voyager 1 will be one light day from Earth. A radio call moving at the speed of light will need a full day, 24 hours, just to get home. One message, one full day. And here is the part NASA doesn't say out loud. The probe is running out of power and the countdown to silence has already started. This is the story of the most distant object humanity has ever built, and the engineers who refuse to let it die. By the end of this video, you'll understand why NASA's team went quiet this spring, why they are switching off their own instruments one at a time, and what really happens when the farthest voice in the universe stops talking. But first, meet the machine. Voyager 1 left Earth in September 1977, riding a Titan rocket, carrying cameras and instruments designed with 1970s technology. It had less computing power than the calculator in your school backpack. Its entire memory could hold a few thousand bytes. It had one job: fly past Jupiter, fly past Saturn, and send the pictures home. Nobody planned for anything after Saturn. That's the truth. The Grand Tour existed because the planets lined up in a rare formation, an alignment that only happens once every 175 years. Engineers saw the window and they built two spacecraft to slip through it. Voyager 1 went first on the fast road. And it just kept going, past every plan, past every promise. In March 1979, it reached Jupiter. The pictures it sent back changed everything. Volcanoes erupting on a moon called Io, a moon that shouldn't be alive, storms bigger than Earth, a planet that looked like a painting made of gas. Scientists stared at the screens like they were seeing another world for the first time, because they were. Then came Saturn in November 1980, rings with gaps and braids no one expected, a moon called Titan wrapped in a thick orange haze, hiding a surface nobody had ever seen. Voyager took its measurements, took its pictures, and then did what no one could stop it from doing. It flew on, leaving the last giant planet behind, heading for the dark. That was 1980. Think about your own life for a second. The people watching television that year are grandparents now. Phones have changed a dozen times. Entire countries have changed. And this little machine, with its tape recorder memory and its 1970s brain, kept flying the whole time. Not one of us has kept anything working for that long. Before it left the planets for good, Voyager turned around one last time. NASA almost said no. Some engineers argued it was a waste of fuel and time, but they pointed the camera home anyway and took a photograph. In that image, Earth appears as a tiny pale dot, smaller than a pixel, hanging in a beam of scattered sunlight. That photograph changed the way humanity sees itself. Carl Sagan called it the pale blue dot and wrote that everyone you have ever loved, everyone you have ever known, every human who ever lived, was there, on that dot. All of our history, all of our wars, all of our music, on a speck of dust suspended in a sunbeam. And then Voyager kept flying. For another decade, another 2 decades, it kept moving away from a sun that grew smaller and smaller. Most people forgot it existed. It became a footnote, a museum piece, still hurling through the dark. Until 2012, when it did the thing that made NASA hold its breath. It reached the edge of everything we call home. To understand what happened in 2012, you need to understand the bubble. The sun doesn't just give us light, it also blows a wind, a stream of charged particles that pushes outward in every direction and wraps around the entire solar system. That bubble is called the heliosphere. Everything we know, every planet, every comet, lives inside it. Beyond the bubble lies interstellar space, the realm between the stars. Nobody had ever touched it with a machine. Scientists could only guess what the boundary looked like, what waited on the other side. Some thought it would be smooth, some thought it would be violent. Voyager 1 was flying straight toward that wall, year after year, at a speed no rocket since has beaten. On August 25, 2012, it crossed. Voyager 1 passed through the boundary, called the heliopause, and became the first human-made object to enter interstellar space. Here's the strangest part. That date, tucked into a long mission log, hides a fight that went on for a long time afterward. The debate got heated, and that's rare for NASA. The crossing was announced and then argued over because Voyager's instruments gave a confusing picture at first. One instrument said it was still inside. Another said it had left. Scientists went back and forth for months, publicly and privately, until the evidence finally lined up and the crossing was confirmed. Think about what that argument really means. A probe built in the 1970s, flying billions of miles from home, was telling us about a border nobody had ever seen. It wasn't a line on a map. It was a real place, a threshold where the sun's power finally runs out and the universe takes over. And we only know it exists because one small machine survived long enough to cross it. Its twin, Voyager 2, took the long road. It visited Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, the only spacecraft ever to see the last two up close. Then it too crossed over, joining Voyager 1 in interstellar space a few years later. 2 machines, 2 directions, 1 achievement. Humanity now had a presence among the stars, whether the stars noticed or not. And here's where the mystery begins. Because interstellar space is not what scientists expected. It's not cold, calm, and empty. It's alive with things we didn't predict. Plasma waves humming through the dark, magnetic fields bending in strange ways, particles that behave differently than every model said they would. Voyager started sending back data that made researchers rewrite their own textbooks. There's a sound of sorts that keeps coming back. Through its plasma wave instrument, Voyager listens to interstellar space the way you listen to the ocean in a shell, and the space between the stars hums, a steady, low, unending note, like the universe itself clearing its throat. NASA released it as audio, and people listened to it like it was a message. It isn't a message, of course. It's just physics, the sloshing of charged gas in the dark. But try telling that to your stomach when you hear it. That hum is the sound of the space between stars. It's the background of the universe we never knew existed, because until Voyager, no machine had ever been there to listen. That silence we imagined? It was never silent. So there's Voyager, drifting through territory no probe has ever mapped, humming back evidence of a wild, unexpected cosmos. And then, in November 2023, the phone went wrong. The machine that had never stopped talking suddenly started saying nothing at all. Gibberish, ones and zeros in the wrong order. Data that made no sense. Engineers on Earth watched the stream of noise and went very, very still. Here's the thing about Voyager that most people never think about. The repair shop is billions of miles away. You can't open the hood, you can't swap a part, you can't touch it, see it, or send a technician. Every command you send takes more than 20 hours, going one way at the speed of light. And every answer takes the same time coming back. That's the working reality of the far side of the solar system. When the gibberish started, the team at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory did what they always do. They stayed calm and they started asking questions. What broke? Where in the machine? Can we see it from here? The probe was sending a repeating pattern of ones and zeros, a stream that carried no information, like a person repeating one syllable forever. Months passed, and here's where it gets personal. Voyager 1 was launched in 1977. Some of the engineers working on this problem had grandparents who weren't born yet. The code running inside that machine was written by people who have retired, who have passed away. And yet, a new generation was about to attempt surgery on a patient they had never met, in a hospital they could never visit. Early in 2024, they found the culprit. A single chip inside the flight data system, the part of Voyager that packages its data for Earth, had failed. One small piece of memory broken after almost 50 years in space. That's the whole mystery in the end. Not aliens, not a curse. Just an old machine finally showing its age. Exactly the way everything built by human hands eventually does. But the fix is the part that doesn't sound real. You can't replace the chip. So NASA did the next impossible thing. They took the code that lived on that broken chip and moved it somewhere else, splitting it into pieces and squeezing them into whatever spare memory the machine still had, all from billions of miles away. Like performing brain surgery by writing a letter. In April 2024, the first good data since November arrived. The machine was talking again. NASA announced it quietly, almost understated, the way you'd announce that your car started after you'd already bought a new one. But the people who understood what had happened knew the truth. A team on Earth had just repaired a computer, built in the 70s, flying beyond every human map, using commands that took a whole day to arrive. Remember, this machine is 46 years old, flying through radiation that can scramble modern electronics in minutes. Its memory is measured in kilobytes. Its processor is weaker than a birthday card that plays music. And every time it breaks, someone on Earth figures out how to fix it. Every single time. The question isn't whether Voyager is impressive anymore. The question is whether we are worthy of the machine we built. But the repairs keep getting harder. In 2017, Voyager's main thrusters, the tiny jets that keep its antenna pointed at Earth, started wearing out. They had been firing for decades, and they were tired. The answer? NASA remembered that the spacecraft also carried backup thrusters that hadn't been used since the Saturn flyby in 1980. 37 years of silence. Nobody knew if they would still work. On November 28, 2017, engineers fired them up. The little thrusters, cold and untouched for almost 4 decades, came alive as if they had been used yesterday. The antenna kept pointing home. The mission kept going. And a room full of people in California, some of them young enough to be the grandchildren of the original team, let out a breath they hadn't realized they were holding. That's the hidden pattern of the Voyager story, and it repeats like a heartbeat. Something breaks. Something gets fixed. The machine keeps flying. 2017, thrusters. 2024, memory. 2025, more troubleshooting. Each time the fixes get harder, the margins get thinner, and the clock gets louder. Because no matter how brilliant the engineers are, there is one enemy they cannot outsmart, and it never misses a deadline. That enemy is time, and its weapon is power. Voyager runs on heat. Not solar panels, it's too far from the sun for those. It runs on a generator that turns the warmth of decaying plutonium into electricity. When it launched, that generator produced enough power to run everything. with room to spare. Almost 50 years later, the plutonium is tired, and every year, the stream of electricity weakens. NASA measures the loss the way you'd watch a bank account shrink a few watts at a time every single year. 4 watts here, 4 watts there. It doesn't sound like much, but Voyager's whole brain runs on very little. There came a point where the numbers stopped working, where the spacecraft had more instruments than it had electricity. And that's when NASA had to make the choice no engineer ever wants to make. What do you do when you can't power everything anymore? You decide what dies first. Instrument by instrument, NASA began turning things off. Science that had run for decades was switched off permanently, not because it broke, but because the lights had to stay on for something else. Engineers started calling it triage. Some of them, privately, called it something closer to hospice. This spring, in 2026, NASA shut down another instrument on Voyager 1, one more piece of the machine going dark to keep the rest alive. The team made it public in the quietest way possible. A blog post, some careful words about conserving power, no drums, no drama. But read between the lines and you'll see it. The machine is being rationed now. Every watt is a decision, every switch a goodbye. There's a strange poetry to it. The same people who spent months moving code around a broken chip now spend their days deciding which of their children's senses to cut off first. Do we keep the ears or the eyes? Do we keep the magnetic sense or the plasma sense? Each answer extends the mission a few more months. Each answer also brings the final one closer. So what does NASA expect? The honest answer, repeated by mission scientists again and again, is this. Voyager 1 still has science to give us. Until roughly 2030, if the budget of watts holds out. After that, the generator simply won't have enough to run a single instrument. And at some point in that neighborhood, the machine will transmit its final message and fall silent forever. Even the antennas may not save us then. The Deep Space Network, the giant radio dishes that catch Voyager's whispers, can only hear a signal that faint for so long. The best estimates say Earth's biggest ears may keep hearing the probe until the mid-2030s, and no further. After that, the most distant object in history becomes the most distant silent object in history. Walk through that timeline with me, because it's closer than you think. Right now, in 2026, the countdown to silence is running. Within a few years, the last instrument goes dark. Shortly after that, the transmitter itself loses the power to speak. And then maybe one last year of listening to nothing. Voyager will still be flying. It just won't be able to tell us about it anymore. But before you get sad, consider this. The silence doesn't mean the story is over, because Voyager carries something with it, something that will outlive its power source, outlive its transmitter, outlive every engineer who ever worked on it, and probably outlive our entire civilization. We haven't talked about it yet. It's time we did. On board Voyager 1, there is a golden record. A phonograph record, the kind your grandparents played music on, made of copper and gold, attached to the side of the spacecraft like a message pinned to a door. On it, humanity recorded itself. Not for us, for whoever or whatever might one day find this machine drifting among the stars, long after we are gone. The record was the idea of Carl Sagan, the astronomer who became the face of the cosmos on television. He and a small team had to answer one impossible question. If you could say anything to the universe, knowing no one might ever hear it, what would you say? Their answer took the form of sound, image, and music, packed into a disc that could last 1 billion years. Inside are more than 100 photographs, oceans, mountains, a mother and child, a page of math, diagrams of our anatomy, our DNA, our solar system, pictures of snowflakes and sunsets, whatever the team could gather to say, this is what it looked like to be human on Earth in the 20th century. And then there are the sounds, wind and thunder, birdsong, the bark of a dog, the sound of a train, crickets on a summer night. Footsteps, laughter, a kiss, a baby crying. The team recorded the planet like a journalist recording a dying language, trying to capture everything important before there was no one left to remember it. There are greetings in 55 human languages, from English to Mandarin to Navajo, each voice saying some version of hello to the dark. And there is music from all over the world. Beethoven, Bach, a Navajo night chant, a Pygmy Girls song, Chuck Berry's Johnny B. Good. When someone grumbled about rock and roll being on the record, the answer that stuck was simple. There are a lot of young people out there. But the most human moment on the record isn't officially listed anywhere. The woman who produced it, Carl Sagan's collaborator, recorded her own heartbeat and the electrical rhythm of her brain as she thought about the world, about love, about all of it. Somewhere out there, drifting through interstellar space, is the sound of one person's heart and one person's mind moving faster than any human has ever traveled. Pause on that for a second. 1 billion years from now, when continents have dissolved and oceans have boiled away, some star-faring thing could catch this machine and play it. And the first sound it might hear from our entire species is a heartbeat, not a declaration, not a warning, just proof that something alive, something that loved, once rode this machine into the dark. The record even carries instructions. Etched into its cover is a diagram showing how to play it, how fast to spin it, how to decode the pictures. A map of pulsars points back toward our sun, our address in the galaxy, in case anyone wants to find us. Sagan called it a message in a bottle thrown into the cosmic ocean, a bottle with no guarantee and no return address from anyone who might reply. Some people think that was reckless. Pointing a map at Earth, telling the universe where we live, they ask the old question, what if the thing that finds it isn't friendly? It's a fair fear, and it's been argued about for decades. But here's what the record's makers understood. That ship is leaving our solar system forever. The only choice was never about whether to send a message. It was about what kind of message to send. And that's the thing about Voyager that people miss when they focus on the engineering. It was never really about Jupiter or Saturn or even interstellar space. It was always a message, a way of saying we existed, we thought, we wondered, we were here. The machine is the messenger. The record is the letter. And the letter is more important than the machine that carries it. So now put it all together and you start to see the shape of the real story. A 50-year-old machine, running on borrowed time and rationed watts, carrying the collected sounds of a species, flying through never-mapped space, humming back data that rewrites physics textbooks. That's the setup. And the climax is coming this fall when Voyager does something no object from Earth has ever done before. In November 2026, Voyager 1 will be 1 light day from Earth. Let me make sure that lands. A light day is the distance light travels in 1 whole day. Light, the fastest thing in the universe, leaving Earth this morning would not catch Voyager until tomorrow morning. The probe will be roughly 16 billion miles away and getting farther by the second. Here's the part that makes engineers pause. When Voyager crosses that line, a command sent from Earth will need a full 24 hours just to arrive. Ask a question, and you wait a day for it to get there. Wait another day for the answer to come back. A conversation with Voyager takes 2 days, round trip, even at the speed of light. That's not a phone call anymore, that's correspondence. NASA has been tracking this milestone for years, quietly, the way you track a birthday you're not sure you want to see. Because every milestone for Voyager cuts both ways now. Reaching 1 light day means the mission has lived past every expectation. It also means the machine has never been farther from help, never been closer to the end, and never been more alone. Let's put that distance in terms you can feel. If you could drive a car to Voyager at highway speed, the trip would take longer than the history of life on Earth. The machine has already been flying for nearly half a century. And in the time it took you to watch this video, it has traveled hundreds of thousands of miles. It never stops. It never slows down. It has one speed, and it intends to keep it. Now here's an uncomfortable thought, and scientists don't like to say it out loud. By the time anyone could ever reach Voyager to fix it, to retrieve it, or even to wave at it, our species will probably be unrecognizable. The window for touching this machine with human hands is already closed, maybe forever. From here on, Voyager is not a thing we can bring home. It's a thing we can only listen to. The listening is about to get quieter. NASA's plan for the remaining years is written out like a survival manual. Turn off an instrument, save 4 watts. Turn off a heater, save a few more. Trim the budget of the machine the way you'd trim a campfire to make it burn until morning. Every choice is a trade, and everyone making it knows where the road ends. There's a name for what the mission team is doing, and the people who worked the Voyager program for decades use it without flinching. They are rationing. They are saying goodbye in installments. They have watched this machine longer than many marriages, longer than most careers, and they are now deciding one small switch at a time which part of it gets to live until Thursday. And yet, even at the end, the science keeps coming. In recent years, Voyager's data has helped scientists map the outer boundary of the solar system, measure the density of interstellar space, and hear the plasma hum we talked about earlier. Every extra month of operation is a gift, and the team treats it that way, publishing paper after paper from a probe that was supposed to be dead long ago. Think about that. The original mission was over decades ago. Everything since has been a miracle on top of a miracle, a sequence of repairs and decisions and watt rations that turned a 5-year mission into a 50-year one. Voyager didn't just exceed expectations. It made expectations look like a joke the universe told itself. So the countdown is real, and it's not sentimental. The instrument shutdowns this spring, the tests scheduled for the middle of 2026, the 1 light day milestone in November, the power curve that points downhill no matter what anyone does. Each one is a marker on the road, and you don't need NASA clearance to read the map. The road ends in silence. The only question is when and what happens after. Let's talk about what happens after, because that's the part of the story almost nobody is telling. When Voyager 1 stops transmitting, it doesn't stop existing. It keeps flying, ballistically, like a stone thrown from a moving train. The machine will drift on, past the Oort cloud, past the farthest comets, out of the solar system entirely. The solar system that is still, for us, practically the whole universe. And here's the wild part. Long after the transmitter goes cold, the golden record is still there, undamaged by the cold, protected by its gold cover, carrying its heartbeat and its Beethoven and its 55 hellos, the mission will end. The message won't. In the deep silence of interstellar space, the letter keeps traveling, waiting for a reader. Astronomers have already worked out where it's going. Not today, not this century, but many thousands of years from now, Voyager 1 will drift past a nearby star, one of the sun's close neighbors, on a timescale so long that no civilization we know has ever lasted that long. Imagine it. Some future stargazers, whoever or whatever they are, will look up and see something moving that doesn't belong. They won't know what it is at first, this bright point crossing their sky in a way no comet or asteroid ever has. Maybe they'll catch it with their instruments. Maybe they'll retrieve it. And maybe this is the dream the records makers carried. Maybe they'll learn to play it, and the first thing they'll understand is that it came from a small blue world where creatures once wondered if they were alone. That question, are we alone, is the thread that runs through this entire story. Every picture Voyager took, every hum it recorded, every watt it spent, circled back to the same hunger. We built this machine to look outward, and what we were really doing was holding up a mirror. We wanted to know if anyone else was out there because we couldn't bear the idea that we were the only ones asking. And in a way, Voyager already answered a part of it. It found that the space between the stars is full of activity, full of structure, full of surprises. It found worlds with oceans hidden under ice, worlds where chemistry is dancing toward something that might be life. It reminded us that our solar system is one of countless billions. The universe, we now know, is absolutely crowded with possibilities. But it also found something else, something harder to measure. It found that a small group of humans, with slide rules and stubbornness and a budget that would barely fund a movie today, could build a machine that outlives them, outthinks its own repair manual, and carries their voices to the stars. That's not a fact about space, that's a fact about us. And it's the most hopeful thing Voyager ever sent home. Right now, somewhere out there, past the last of the planets, past the bubble that contains everything human beings have ever touched, Voyager 1 is flying. As you watch this video, it is putting more distance between us and itself. The machine made in the 1970s is still doing the thing it was made to do, in a place no maker ever saw. So when exactly does it end? The honest answer is that nobody knows the exact hour, only the neighborhood. The power curve says the last instrument dies around the end of this decade. The Deep Space Network says the last whisper may be heard into the mid-2030s. Between those two dates, the world's most famous spacecraft will quietly become the world's most famous ghost. And NASA, being NASA, is already thinking about the last day. The final switch-off won't be dramatic. There won't be a big announcement or a countdown on television or a ceremony. One day, a routine command will go out to turn off the very last instrument. A day later, the confirmation will come back, or it won't, and then the engineer whose job it was to send that command will close the laptop and go home. But here's the twist, and it's the reason this story matters. The last transmission from Voyager will not be the end of the message. Remember the open loop from the start of this video, the thing we promised you'd understand? This is where it closes. The silence of Voyager is not the failure of the mission, it's the point of it. Go back to the beginning with me. The record was never meant to be played by us. The letter was never meant to be read by the sender. Voyager's whole design assumed an ending, a handoff to the future, a moment when the machine's job changes from reporting to representing. The day it goes quiet, it stops being a probe. It becomes a monument, the fastest monument ever built. Think about what that means for the people who built it. The engineers are not losing a spacecraft. They're completing one. Every repair, every workaround, every rationed watt was a step in a plan that was always going to end this way. They knew the day was coming when they built the thing. They just hoped, the way all parents hope, that it would take longer than it did. And there's one more layer that makes this story almost unbearable, and it's the timeline. The people who designed Voyager are mostly gone now. The people fixing it today were children when it launched, or not born yet. The people who will receive its last message were maybe not born yet either. The message keeps moving forward in time, outrunning its own makers, and that, more than distance, is the measure of how far this thing has gone. This November, when Voyager crosses one light day, look up the milestone. NASA will note it somewhere, in a blog post, a status page, a quiet line in the mission log, and in that quiet line you'll find the whole story. A 1970s machine, 24 hours of light away, still answering the phone, still on duty, still heading for a star it will reach when every human being alive today is dust. There's a detail about that one light day crossing that you should keep in your back pocket. It means that when you send Voyager a message this fall, it won't hear it until the next day. And to the machine, the message will sound exactly as fresh as the day it was sent. The speed of light doesn't age. The question is whether we can say the same about what we send. So what should we be sending? That's the question hiding inside this whole story, and it's aimed at us, not at Voyager. If every watt is precious, if every byte is a choice, What is worth saying to the dark? The record makers answered with heartbeats and music and the sound of rain. Maybe that's the only answer that ever survives the trip. The facts age, the feeling doesn't. Scientists like to point out that Voyager's real contribution is data. The maps, the readings, the hums, the measurements that fill 1,000 papers. And it's true, that data changed astronomy. But step back, and the data is just the scaffolding. The story is the structure. The story is that we reached out, and we're still reaching, even now, as the power fades and the distance grows. And that's the thing to hold on to in the final act of this story. Voyager is not dying. It is finishing. It is doing the last thing a probe can do, which is let go of home and become something permanent, something that no longer needs us. There's a word for a thing that carries a culture's memory beyond its own world, and it's the same word that runs through everything we've covered tonight. It's a legacy. In a few short years, the countdown reaches 0. The instrument that was shut off this spring will not be the last. The wattage will keep dropping. The commands from Earth will get rarer. The pauses between them will get longer until one day there's nothing left to command, and the Deep Space Network turns its great ear away from a target that has finally gone quiet. But do not mistake that quiet for absence. Voyager 1 will still be there, in the darkness beyond the heliopause, carrying the golden record, carrying the heartbeat, carrying the 1970s, carrying everything we were brave enough to say. It will be the first thing we ever sent that is truly permanent. But it's not a grave marker. It's a seed. A seed is the right image, because a seed doesn't need its tree to survive. Generations after the last human touches Voyager, it will still arrive at wherever it's going, still intact, still gold, still humming with the stored memory of a planet. And when it arrives, the story won't be about a machine. It will be about us, about whether we were worth remembering. This is the moment in the story where you're supposed to feel something, so let's be honest about what that feeling is. It's grief, and it's pride, and it's awe all at once. Grief, because the thing we love is running out of time. Pride, because we built it, and we kept it alive beyond all reason. Awe, because it's out there right now, doing precisely what we asked, in a place we can barely imagine. And it's also something else. It's a mirror. Because Voyager's slow fade is our own story in miniature. Everything we love will eventually run out of power. Every project, every era, every life. The question is never whether the end comes. The question is what we carry with us when it does, and whether we kept transmitting while we had the watts.